So, time for a small middle break before we continue the discussion with Jesper Fredriksson about going from RAG to autonomous agents in some way. But before that, let's pick up some of the favorite news that we heard over the last week. And each one of us can choose a couple of topics. Who wants to go first? Jesper, do you have a favorite news article that you want to speak
I can start.
Yeah?
So I think I hinted towards in the beginning that I maybe stopped the brain imaging work prematurely. I've been following eagerly for many years now the mind reading AI story. Already in 2011, the first paper was released from a research group where they tried to reconstruct an image, or rather a film, of what participants were seeing when they recorded fMRI scans. So they showed something to the participants, and then they observed the activities in the voxels of the brain scan.
Can you do that fMRI in real time, really? Or how did they do that?
No, I think they did it. They probably recorded it and then they used it afterwards. Okay. You can do fMRI in real time, but the question is what you do with it. I don't think you can get the results and work with it. It takes some time. Anyway, this is a long ago, this paper. But what caught my attention this week was something that looks very weird. It's called Morpheus, which is a transformer model for a specific purpose that has to do with brain imaging. It's made by a startup company called Prophetic, and I have a very overloaded video where they describe this. It's in a way very American and very over the top. They talk about lucid dreaming. Yeah. It's a device. It's a device that is made for getting you in a state where you have lucid dreaming. I have my doubts that it's going to work, but the underpinnings of this is like a trend that's been going for a long time, this mind reading thing. And what they're adding in this product is something that would be super fun to have worked on if I was still in the brain imaging game, is something that can, while you go to sleep, you're supposed to wear this headband, and it can register what your activities in the brain are.
EEG.
It uses EEG, and already that is questionable how well it performs. fMRI definitely, but EEG a little bit shaky. And then it reads off this activity and tries to steer it towards activities that look like lucid dreaming.
How do they steer it? Do they put electrical impulses somehow, or
they use a new technology that I haven't heard about before. That's called ultrasound. It's something. I'm forgetting. It's called. Let's say, I think it's called transcranial ultrasound something.
I think he will.
Yeah. Anyway, it's. I don't think that they will succeed with this, but I still think it's going to be an interesting story to follow, because.
Is it ultrasonic sound that they actually use to modify the brainwaves somehow?
Yes. So supposedly they modify. There are other experiments with this where they're trying to do things like cure. I'm not sure if they really work, but there's something about curing addictions using this technology. For me, it's a new thing. I've heard about transcranial magnetic stimulation before, where you sort of induce currents. But this is a new thing. I hadn't heard about it before. So it's going to be interesting to follow. I don't believe in it, but I believe in a lot of the.
You think it's fake, or?
No, I don't think it's fake. I think they're really trying to do this. It seems like it follows some kind of trajectory. I buy into what they're saying, but I don't think it's solid enough to work to really put you in a lucid dreaming state.
I've been to meditations, and I think all this kind of interesting technology and trying to understand your own brain and is really interesting. And perhaps we should describe what lucid dreaming really is.
That's true. Yeah.
Do you have a good definition, or?
So lucid dreaming is when you're sleeping and you're aware that you're dreaming. You have some conscience in your dream that this is a dream.
Control it potentially.
If you get to the stage where you realize that you're dreaming, then you can sometimes also control the dream. Have you had a lucid dream?
Yeah.
No? Yeah, me too. It's very cool when you get into that stage. But it would be cool if you could use a device to control it.
Yeah. And is there a thing here where sometimes it feels like the human brain needs to process stuff when we sleep, or you need to sleep on that.
Are you talking about the meaning of sleep?
No, I was going down the path how lucid dreaming potentially can be useful as a way to process complex topics.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I think it's a way to try to understand yourself a bit and get a closer understanding of your mind. And perhaps some thoughts or...
but is it gimmicky or is it useful?
Are we talking about lucid dreaming?
Yeah.
I think it's... I see it as a fun pastime. I don't think it's particularly revelatory. To me, I don't think it brings any new insights about me. Maybe that's just me. I think it's like a good VR show in a way.
I'm not sure because I'm thinking that I'm processing stuff sometimes that maybe you can unlock processing power in your brain this way.
I think we can all agree that if you don't sleep, you are going to go crazy and die very quickly.
Yeah.
So
sleep is one thing, but lucid dreaming is a totally different thing.
Trying to get to the point. Then the question is really, can we in some way start to sleep in a more efficient way? If you think about sleeping as some kind of defragmentation of the brain or some kind of way to reset the brain to make sure it's operating properly, but then have some kind of more conscious part of it, because this is really moving between the land of being unconscious and being conscious and finding the intersection of the tween.
Exactly.
And that is kind of an interesting land where I think
you're trying to make sleep more useful. Is that what
exactly? So how can I get to 23 hours work week?
Yes, exactly.
All right, let's go for the next one. This is awesome. That was awesome.
That's and cool that AI can actually potentially get you more access to lucid dreaming and perhaps even control it a bit more. Awesome. Should I go or should you want?
I have
two very small stories actually. So
I have one small story and one which we could discuss. I can start with a small story and then you can do yours, and then we'll see. Did you all see? Elon Musk. Do you all see that there was some announcement around Neuralink? Been doing
a very big one.
I thought about that when I did this Morpheus.
Because I think that sort of we're still in brainland now. But so Neuralink, they've started human trials and they have some kind of first results or whatever. That's all I know. I was just going to. I think it's a fairly big.
The
topic.
first human implant, and the person is now recovering from that surgery. And
but do we know who it was? Do we know what was it? Somebody who had disabilities, or why did
the storytelling has been to cure like Parkinson or different things. That's the storytelling, of course. That they're focusing on how can we make people who are lame.
I think what they said about this was that the purpose of this implant was to control a cursor.
Yes.
On a
that
computer.
Was the experiment. Yeah, that was the experiment. But the bigger picture storytelling, that's what I was referring to. To someone who cannot walk, can we make them walk again?
I mean, someone that had this kind of spinal core injury, or they cannot really move their limbs in some way, and for them to start.
But of course, this is a big picture topic where if you figure this out, the uses goes in many directions. This particular one was steer a cursor, I think it was.
I mean, it's a really big milestone. Then I mean, we've seen the videos of the pigs that had the implants and the apes and whatnot, and now it's actually the first human that have a chip in the brain that they can read and control the brain with. It's a super big milestone, I think.
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with it. But yeah,
We'll see when we look back at this mind capsule.
Yes, Kevin.
So that was it.
Okay. Let's see. One should I take? Okay, quick one. Just to continue on Elon Musk a bit and Tesla. And they actually released the big release now, the version 12 of their full self-driving.
Yeah.
So now it's released, not to everyone, of course, but to a selected set of beta drivers. And the big news with the version 12, which it is the first end-to-end neural network version. So before they just had neural networks for the perception part of the full self-driving, not for the control or planning part, that was hard-coded with rules saying if there is a traffic sign that is green, then accelerate, otherwise do not. So they had humans adding these kind of rules, hand-coded rules. Now they removed them. Now they have neural networks that control both the perception, the planning, and the control. And that opened up so many new possibilities, because now you don't need to annotate anymore saying, this is a lane in the street, this is a traffic sign, this is a human or a pedestrian on the street, this is a car. You don't need the whole object detection kind of annotation that otherwise is necessary. It just can learn end-to-end from braking, accelerating, steering to the sensor input.
Yeah, and of course, one of the key unique things has, of course, been the smartness of Tesla, recording and building up the training data sets that is...
Yeah, they have more training data than anyone.
No one is even
by orders
close.
of magnitude.
By orders of magnitude, have put them in a position where this is viable.
Do they do the annotation automatically, or is that out of the picture?
I think it's out of the picture, but I think they start with still having the old models that have the annotations in them. And that's like an initialization of the other models, so they don't have to train from scratch, because I think that would take too long. But at least they have a starting point. Then they just let it train end to end without having the annotations in place.
We talked about this before, and it is a fairly big deal.
It is a really big deal.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I guess it will take some time before it catch up, because the problem with this is if you want to control it, it's really hard now. Before you could go in and say that now, if you see a dog, then run it over. If you see a human, then stop. Yeah. Now you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was asking about the annotations. So
I don't know the details on this level, how it really works.
I mean, hard-coded, then you can simply add the rules. But in a neural network, you can't go in and change the parameters one by one. I mean, it's too hard. So the only way to change the parameters then for the control part, if you should brake or not, is really to add data to it.
Yeah.
And they still don't know if it will work or not. So it's much harder to control a system that you can't add hard-coded rules to.
Do you know if they use synthetic data, or if it's only real data that they're working with?
I don't know the details.
I'm sure they use some synthetic data as well and simulate the shit out of this all the time. I would be surprised, but I don't know.
I was talking to a Swedish company who does synthetic data, and I think they did specifically for the car industry. They had some, I don't remember the name of the company, but I remember seeing a video that they generated. Like they rendered photorealistic scenes where somebody in a car stretches over to fetch a mobile phone, and then jiggles a little bit with the steering wheel just to see what happens in a car when you do things that you're not supposed to do. That's I think it was cool.
Did you have one more?
Okay, one more. I think it's interesting, given all the super election year that we will have in 2024, and of course we had the big election in Argentina in October, and it was so much generative AI and fake images and fake videos. People putting the opposing candidate in like a zombie picture and themselves with a teddy bear. And I mean, it was like a weird thing. And of course, this will be a very interesting year with all the elections, and not the least in US. And now it was a fake Joe Biden robocall. Basically, they had an AI that called home to citizens in US sounding like Joe Biden. Hey, I can't really make Joe Biden's voice, but you know how he sounds.
I really don't.
I guess you should be sluddering a bit with the voices. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say. Anyway, it sounded like Joe Biden, and it was telling voters not to go and vote in New Hampshire primary election.
Because the real election was later, so you're not supposed to vote.
It would just help Donald Trump if they went to vote, so don't do it. And it's like crazy. I listened to actually the phone call. They had a clip of it, so you can listen to it. It was actually kind of poorly done. It was very distorted, very noisy kind of sound, but it sounded like Joe Biden. And it's telling people not to go to vote.
Did you hear what happened after that?
No.
So they figured out that it was the company behind this robocall was 11 Labs. I mean,
Really?
created like that.
Okay.
And then they talked to 11 Labs, and they told.
Yes, suspected that it was.
11 Labs does so much better than this, but okay.
Yeah, this is at least what I heard. So they found out that it was through 11 Labs, and then they reached out to them, and they found out who it was.
Really?
Yes,
who was it then? Do you know?
I don't know. That was not in the story, but they found. I think it's interesting if we're at that stage where people do this fake news. They use AI to produce fake things, but we're actually catching up with it.
Yeah. Now, I saw in this story that I read that they will certainly, investigate this and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law or something, because it's clearly illegal to try to influence the democracy and voting in this way. So, interesting.
I have one more. On a different
just
note.
to end this.
Sorry.
It's the first one of the bigger one. I'm sure we will see so much more of this coming year. So
and used all the different variations on this.
Yeah.
Here you have a call not to vote. Okay, what else can you do to create mayhem?
Yeah.
Anything.
Videos,
There's so many variations.
articles,
Okay. On a different note, there was an announcement on the 23rd of January that Germany, France, and Poland announced the Weimar Triangle for artificial intelligence.
Once again, what is
The Weimar Triangle. And the word Weimar Triangle was first coined and used between these three states in 1991. And literally that was Poland sort of joining EU and sort of France and Germany stepping up to really help them accelerate, to come into the Western sort of standards and all this. And now they are joining forces, literally going back, and now, Poland is not sort of the state they're helping. So now they're more on equal terms. But they said the core idea is like 3 leading member states have formed a political alliance to push for better coordination between national plans and investment in artificial intelligence with EU policies relating to the sector. So of course we are doing so much things in EU level. In one way, the sort of the bureaucratic way with Horizon, blah, and whatever it is called. But I think this is an interesting topic, right? If we want to stand up and be competitive in Europe, there needs to be some real hard work and money and focus. If you contrast with how China is doing things or how US is doing things. So will we see more of this? But I think this is an interesting angle that the states are sort of starting to really focus.
Can it be done through states?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. That's what I thought was interesting, right?
Yeah. I mean, Mistral is super interesting in this respect. That there's finally a European company that does generative AI, and they're really at the forefront. But there's so many of these government initiatives that seems to not do so much. Or what do you think, Anders? Maybe this is more your game.
Yeah, okay. Let me add one last story then. I'm trying to keep it short. But I was yesterday at this big conference in Sweden called AI i nationens intresse, or AI for the good of nations.
Good of the nation, which is basically Sweden, not nations. Very important here.
Yes, good of the nation, of the Swedish nation.
Yes, thank you.
But the core story, and it was a story pushed in the Swedish Dagens Nyheterna, also collected to this saying lagom is not enough for Swedish AI, or lagom is a Swedish word which it's hard to translate to English, but it's basically saying, being halfway through or doing it semi.
Good enough is
just
not
good enough. Yeah.
Good enough is not enough.
Yeah, good enough is not good enough. I guess that's the way to phrase it. And then we have the Minister of Digitalization there, Erik Slottner. We had the CIO of Estonia, Lucas, and so many other, the AI Commission, and I spoke a bit as well. And we were trying to see, for one, to recognize that Sweden actually has fallen behind a bit. We previously, like 10 years ago, was really leading, or was in at least the top in some aspects when it comes to digitalization. But now when it comes to AI, we are trailing a bit behind. And that is if you compare to other countries in the Nordics and Europe. So even in the Europe, we can say we are average, basically. We are certainly not in the lead, but we're average or a bit above average. If you then think that Europe on its side is behind US and China, then we're, compared to the rest of the world, even further behind a bit. Yeah. And I think it was really good to hear that also the minister recognized that and said, this is not okay. We should fix this. And for me and for all the other people there that are interested in these fields and believe AI will do the society so much good, it was really pleasant to hear that they all recognized this.
More AI engineers.
Yes, more AI engineers for the world.
But the interesting topic is, I think, back to the core question: is this a state matter, or what is the state matter in this? And I think that's the core crux here.
What can and what should the state do?
Should the state become a startup? Should the state become a hyperscaler? I do not think it's about that at all. It's about creating the environments.
Isn't that the state's purpose then?
Not to create the startup, but to create the environment.
Yeah, but that's what I said.
Yeah, I think so.
So it is a state matter.
So
that's the question of what they should do.
Exactly. So that would be my. I'm on the other side here. That it's definitely a state matter, but But it's about what is the state matter is the interesting question, really.
And I shouldn't linger on this topic, but still, because I got this question so often, and some people ask, the small country of Sweden, what can you ever do? But then if you compare to China or US or whatnot. But I think, I would like to quote, I think it was Eric Schmidt when he was leading Google that said, we don't fear the enterprises. We don't fear the Apples or the Microsoft of the world. The one we do fear is the innovative startup, the small startup that have the really innovative idea that we haven't thought about that can really revolutionize how they're going to use the world. And in that sense, a small country like Sweden can, if we are really innovative, make a big change. Yep. So I don't think we should, count size necessarily as the most important thing.
No, and then back to the news story on the Weimar Triangle. Are we better off just being nimble and just focusing on Sweden as a nation state, or do we want to collaborate with Norway and Denmark? Yes. Or there's a logic behind that argument that could be that language is so profound in this world that there is an argument here that the way we are using English language is biasing the whole large language models towards certain cultures. So if you really want to have something that is AI for good that sort of works for us, it's super important, most likely, to have the strength of your languages as part of this. And, so there are many angles here. But are we But are we better off doing it alone, or are we better off doing it with our Scandinavian friends, or should we, tag along with Germany? Yep. EU, is EU the right place?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, interesting.
You should ask ChatGPT.
You should ask exactly. Good. I think it's enough.
Okay. Should we move back to?
Yes.
No.
Go on.
To finalize this.
Okay.
First, a little bit of comment. It's super exciting to hear that event happened yesterday. Maybe they should listen to the episode 01 of the podcast 3 years ago. We have been discussing this for 3 years. Yeah. We brought so many people here, politicians and etc., to discuss just that and how we can find solutions. So maybe they should listen to this. They should have. And but that is another story for another day. Coming back, very few small news. This is the freshest one. It's only 6 hours old, and that is that Google basically announced today that Bard chatbot is not powered by Gemini Pro model globally to support with over 40 languages. They also announced quite a number of new inventions, including.
I don't see Swedish there though.
Of course, because Sweden, as you mentioned, is a small country that just started talking about like how they should take this seriously, being a little bit sarcastic here, but I think this is only part of the languages, and it's 14 total. So I'm sure that Swedish is here as well.
But I don't understand. Wasn't Gemini Pro, wasn't that powered all along?
And Bard was powered by Palm 2.
Yes.
Before. Now we switched to Gemini.
Yes, so Gemini was announced in December.
Okay.
No, Gemini was announced in December with the story when they were like marketing wise sketching a bit. Right, so now it's that in Gemini Pro. They also announced the update on the music FX. So now basically you can release videos up to 70 seconds in length and music loops. And this is actually making quite a lot of noise in the music industry, because now you can actually do quite a lot of new loops and etc. So those ones that are working as a freelancer making jingles, goodbye. The interesting another story was actually regarding OpenAI. You remember that Italy forbid the OpenAI ChatGPT at the beginning, and since then they opened it, but they have been investigating actually how to catch them in court. So finally now they have sent like a cease to desist, almost type of letter where they are saying that the OpenAI is working against the GDPR in Europe.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yes, and but they don't actually, they haven't, if I understood correctly, they haven't defined on which basically grounds they are convicting OpenAI for that, but they demanded answer, and of course OpenAI said like, we are always working towards that. But as you can see in this text, actually it's like most likely it's about the data that they have been gathering, which is scraped from internet. It includes also personal data of individuals, and then there is also a violation in the output, which is basically hallucination. There is a concerns about like what is called like I think it was child violation or something like that. I'm not sure about that. So yes, also flag child safety as a problem, whatever. So they have some explanation to do, and I think eventually they will get fined as well, because we in Europe, we are so good in collecting money. It's like the kings in the past.
That's how we survive. We sue all the big tech giants.
Yeah, I mean, why should you innovate?
That's the European business model, right?
Why you should innovate where you can just block it? Somebody needs to be a policeman. If everybody parking on the wrong street, you can actually punish and get money from that as well.
I mean, imagine, one part of GDPR is the right to be forgotten. So if someone comes, I remember the Spotify days, some person came, remove everything about me. And of course, it's super hard to do that, even for Spotify, even though it didn't have an AI model to remove it from. Well, they partly did. But anyway, how should Chat or OpenAI remove people or personal information or for a specific person inside the parameter space of...
Almost impossible.
It is.
Yeah. They also, if you that we didn't cover on the last episode, but actually there was a discussion about the New York Times, lawsuit and etc. And Sam Altman went out and just frankly said like, how do you think it's going to be possible to build a large language model of this size without actually using any intellectual property data? It's impossible. Then you will have like completely different. And basically it's a questions like, if we are going towards artificial general intelligence and large language models of this size, you cannot build that without basically having all the human knowledge gathered into one. It's impossible, right?
I wish someone were to sue me, because they force me in my human brain to remove all information about Jesper Fredriksson.
Yeah.
And if I don't do that, I get sued for 4% of my revenue.
Well, I mean, Elon Musk probably will.
When you have Neuralink, that will come.
Yeah, Elon Musk is probably working on that. And the last, basically, to finish with what is called Anders started. There are different ways how to do deepfakes. So somebody this Wednesday, this was the biggest actually news. So as you know, Taylor Swift ended up in the news for a wrong reason this time. So somebody has produced like a number of explicit pictures of her and distributed this over social media channels, especially especially X and I think Reddit and etc. So now all of the social media, this was the interesting part, all the social media basically removed or canceled or basically canceled all the searches for such pictures. And now they don't know exactly where this is coming from, the pictures, because probably it's either Stable Diffusion or DALL-E or Midjourney, one of them for sure, and they will probably find it if they want to. But it raises a concern. So how far we need to go in order for us to start thinking about like, okay, maybe there is a misuse of this. And I don't know if you know, if you have worked with the Midjourney version 6. Actually, nudity is back. Yeah, so it's very, very, very interesting, because even if you don't want it, at some point of time, it just pops out. It's very interesting. Interesting. I think it's scary, because at some point of time, it was basically, at the beginning, it was like that. Then it was canceled. Now with the 6, it came back as well. So interesting. So this is basically, for me, very short and sweet. So let's continue.
Yeah, really good news.